into projection. So projection is at every way of life. And when you talk about diplomacy, which I will be talking a little later, a lot of people feel that diplomacy is a bunch of lies, but it is actually a projection. So, and me, more than 50 years in professional life, in corporate and educational life, I have a slight different kind of approach in life. I believe when I talk about profession, we are all educators here. So that's our profession. A number of us, majority of us are rather educators because out of passion, not because of, commercial aspects. That is what I have experienced all my life. Most of the teachers are very passionate. And when we have that genuineness, that automatically gets portrayed with the, and today's condition across the globe, the pandemic is very frightful. And here, projection reality becomes extremely important. I remember when Dr. Nair, Suresh sir, actually is speaking to me, I only chose this topic. I said, it's so relevant today because the reality is all of us are panic stricken. We are frightened. And that is the truth. But yet, somehow, all of us hopes, because even yesterday, I was addressing the medical fraternity, and I have told, I said, what normally happens if you see any patient, 50% the patient becomes all right the moment the patient meets the doctor and doctor has that positive approach, and then we start feeling happy. So what is it actually bottom line? It's the hope. Because if there is no hope, we cannot go ahead. That means if there is no positivity. And in pandemic, what has happened? What is the human race frightened about? Frightened about the unknown. And pandemic, everywhere, if you go to see the newspaper or the news channel or any person we talk, everybody's talking how terrible it is. Now, during this last 1 year, I have addressed innumerable motivational addresses to the medical fraternity, frontline, back office, nurses, doctors. I've also addressed the workers and non-management people of the corporate, of the essential services, to motivate them to come forward to work. Now, with all this that was happening, the each sector did their own work. The economic sector looked after the economics. Then the health sector looked after the health. But we educators, we did a very, very great job. That is because we created the spirit for living. Education was spirit for living. And if we see, all the teachers got groomed onto online training and gradually now has become expert on that. Now, that happened because there is a hope. And in other words, we all projected that hope to millions of people. Yet, the reality remained there, somehow there was an unknown fear, but we started believing in ourselves. So what I want to do is go back from profession to our life, because we are not, our definition or explanation of our living is not only our profession. I believe every coin has two sides. So we have one side is professional, the other side is social and personal. But the profession comes later. But before profession comes what? Before profession comes human relations, our neighbors, our family. But before that comes me, the self. And I believe this self needs to have confidence. This self needs to have assurances within self that yes, I live. I always believe there are three things in life: existing, living, and reality living. Now, majority of us generally, as a human relation researcher, I find majority of us exist. We do our routine job. We don't live. And I often give an explanation, like in any metropolis, if you go to, in the busy hours, if you go to the platform in a railway platform, when you get down, we cannot keep standing. We have to keep moving because we are getting pushed. And only that we do is we turn right or left so that we are able to reach our destination. That I call is existing. Living is something that I do with joy. And then comes reality living, where I also do for others. So I believe that truth has to be living, not existing. And for this, each one of us have to go back to our own selves. In the management circle, we always say, if a person is not happy at home, one cannot be passionate in the profession. So we need, and when I say happy at home means, I mean within myself. Happiness, we always say happiness is a state of mind. If I want to be happy, I am happy. If I do not want to be happy, nobody can make me happy. So essentially, I will begin from there. I always say this is projection and reality is the universal truth. Sir, can I have the next slide, please? It is called, so I always look at it. See, I'm going backwards. Profession, relation, family, and self. This is in anywhere, in every sphere of life. Now, whether we are doctors, whether I'm an MBA, I'm an engineer, I'm a teacher, anywhere, these things are important. Often we feel that my profession, we start giving a lot of importance, in the corporate and even in the medical field. Now there's a huge program, I think even in the education, it has started coming, work-life balance, because we are unable to balance this two. Either we give too much of importance to profession. Profession is a source of income. Money is important. Without vitamin M, we cannot survive. But that is not the only thing. I started saying that majority of we teachers are passionate. If in profession passion isn't there, one cannot be successful. I often say, what is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary person? Is that little extra. One who has the passion goes that extra step. And therefore, it has to happen from self. So I go to a definition of self, and I believe in my research, there are 3 S's in self: self-confidence, sustenance of rationality, and self-reliance. Every one of us have always heard that we need to have self-confidence, but seldom we have ever been told how to have self-confidence. Now, I have the honor that the Maharashtra government, based on my research work, has introduced personality development as a compulsory subject in all state boards, schools, and CBSE, ICSE. We have had life skill since 1994. In the research, where with the students, we have also started sharing this, because the self-confidence, and there is a difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. But how do I have self-confidence? That needs to be shared. Basically, majority of the people are body shy. When I say body shy, I do not mean that we need to be shameless and we have to be vulgar. But when I say body shy, I mean at least in the 80s and up to 2000, till the year 2000, in India, we would find it very shocking if we have told anybody, have a look at your body, have a look at your physique. Of course, now, since it is all over the net, so people have started getting accustomed to it. But it is very important that 50% of our self-confidence comes from our body. Body reacts to clothes. You will notice that the moment we are formally dressed with a suit, we will sit in a particular manner. We will walk in a particular manner. We'll stand in a particular manner. Where the lungi or the munda or a pajama, you will notice we will sit in a different manner. We'll walk also very casually. So body reacts to clothes. So appreciation of the body has 2 things, of course, hygiene and health, but more than that, psychologically, it gives me a very good feeling. That is why I say, if I'm not beautiful in my own eyes, how can I be beautiful in the eyes of others? And who am I or anyone else to sit on a judgment of a fellow human being. Now, this beauty is not physical alone, because that is here I have introduced science of mirror, that I need to look at myself in the mirror. I need to appreciate self. It begins from self. I need to appreciate myself. A lot of people say that why should you love yourself? Because the moment you love yourself, you are selfish. I beg to differ. I believe if I cannot love myself, I cannot love anybody else. But yes, when I say I, there cannot be a full stop after that. Then it becomes selfish. From I, it should become dot, 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 and become we. From I to we, this is the journey of knowing self. And when I say self-confidence, one is body, one is to identify my own strengths and weaknesses. Most of us think that I have to get my strengths and weaknesses as per the perception of others. I believe not at all, because human relationship is all about need base. Everybody needs everybody else, and accordingly we start perceiving people. And therefore, it is in my own eyes, I have to identify my pluses and my minuses. And I have to grow on my pluses and while rectifying my minuses. However insignificant may be my pluses. It could be that I'm good in some game. So how do we define what is the quality? Quality is anything that I do that gives me joy, but does not harm anybody else. That's my passion. And that is what we need to grow about. Number of have become teachers because we have seen people teaching and we are impressed, or I love teaching, or I love reading, or it could be I love sharing, or it could be I love talking, or I love being with youngsters. So there could be multiple reasons. But any one of those, if I pursued, it has triggered into me to grow in my pluses. It could be as simple as I have known people who love to talk. They can definitely make an approach to become a public speaker or an orator. So any quality that I have, I need to pursue, however insignificant it may be in the eyes of others. Because when I pursue, like you have heard, I'm a performing artist. I'm a renowned Kathak dancer and a folk dancer. I started it from the age of 2.5, and I continue to do so. And that led me to research through dance physiology. And that led me to research through dance on health. And today I've come out with a computer syndrome exercises, which is shown by CNBC channel all the time, because, and specifically this time of pandemic, everybody's getting affected by using constantly computers or laptops or the mobile. It is having its own reaction with the eyes or with the body. But this consumer computer syndrome exercises help us to get out of it. And we are under so much of demand that we need to show that to people. And I often say that you can, of course, always go to the Google and see all the exercises are shown. And if that is done, you can accrue the benefits. Having said this, the next step on the self-confidence comes is that I need never to compare myself with others. Unfortunately, in the world, right from childhood, we have always been compared with other people. But it should never be, because in psychology, we believe no two people are alike and can ever be alike. We are different. And I also believe, therefore, no person is superior or inferior to others. We happen to be senior or junior by virtue of being born early or later. So I need to compare myself at all, if at all, with me, what I was, what I am, and what I'm going to be. And accordingly, I need to grow. The second S, I talk about sustenance of rationality. This reasoning power is a very, very important thing in human life. We are all educators. We know in third standard, the first thing that is taught to a child is human beings are rational animals. It's later we are taught human beings are also social animals. After that, we are taught human beings are also emotional animals. But the tragedy is, when I ask any adult Fill in the blank. Human beings are dash animals. They all say social, irrespective of whether they're doctors, engineers, even teachers. We forget the first we are rational. That distinguishes us, differentiates us from any other animal. Other animals cannot think, only human beings can think. But unfortunately, we give that as the last preference. That's why I have used the word sustenance, because it is there within me. All that I have to do is polish it. Again, because we are in the same fraternity, we have a huge error in our education system. I'm not talking about India, I'm talking across the globe. We do not, of course, trends are it's changing. We do not allow questions to be asked. Our teaching methodology is I told and you listen. Today we are talking about participatory learning. We are talking about experiential learning, but all this has evolved. So far, it has always been the teacher said the student learned, or the parents said the children learned. Children were never allowed to ask questions. And I always believe asking a question is my birthright. Yes, how to ask is a question is a different issue. I must know whom I'm asking a question. That brings me to transaction analysis of communication, where the sender must understand the capacity of the receiver to receive and interact accordingly. So I must know whom am I asking a question. So accordingly, I will have to be asking a question. And we elders are obliged to answer. But often we snub. We say, shut up because I told you. Maybe we don't have time. In emergencies, it is okay. But otherwise, we need to offer explanation. And by offering explanations, we do not become small. Believe me, I'm not bragging, but I practice this with my own supporting staff also. Any question they can always ask me. And I always offer an explanation, even before they ask. For the simple reason is, why should I belittle the intellectual development of those people? They have a right to know. And then I found when I give the reason before the work is done, they do it much more efficiently because they know what is the purpose of the work to be done. This sustenance has to be, that's why I use the word sustain, that we have to pursue rationality. When we are not going to use rationality, then it gets rusted. Like a shoe has to be polished, diamond has to be polished, our rationality has to be polished. And therefore, there are methods. There are methods is one is calming the mind. That could be either done through meditation or yoga or being alone with self. Often we keep on saying we must do yoga, let's be practical. How many of us can? Specifically in a metropolis cities where the life is so fast. We don't get time, but we can definitely get time for ourselves for 15, 20 minutes to half an hour. So I always suggest to people, spend time with yourself. And this spending time with yourself starts coming. What happens at the initial stages when you start, a lot of thoughts come. But gradually, thoughts stop. So I'm blank. And that's as good as meditation. And when you come, what happens? I become reasonable. I become more objective. And I think I need to offer a reason to myself also as to why I do what I do. And therefore, I decide how I do what I do. And this starts giving us the calmness. And I also believe to create a comfort zone. That is why I often say that believe in our own traditions, believe in our customs. And because we get a lot of comfort zone from this, I always say, accept the contribution of material objects to your life because we feel comfortable. But often people say then we are becoming materialistic. I see all of us, the side of the bed we sleep, we are never wanting to change that with anybody. Why? Because we are comfortable there. And you know, it has got connection with the feeling for the material. Like in our Indian society, we always have Griha Pravesh. We have Bhumi Pujan. Even abroad, they have housewarming parties. So that means the house, they feel it is mine. So the sense of belonging to the house. This sense of belonging gives us a comfort zone all the time. And Now there is a very important thing, which number of you must be reading it now on the net. It is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Therapy. It is a must. And like all of us, we get burdened sometime or the other. There are issues that stresses us. Now, where do I go with my stress? And how many times can I go to people? Can the other person understand my stress the way it has happened? It is not possible. Even a counselor does not, because counselor listens to one side of the story, not the other side of the story. It's very important, therefore, to become self-sufficient. Get it out of your system. I'll tell you the EFT system is, it is not diary writing. It is anytime I'm stressed or something that is worrying me, I should take a sheet of paper, write down the issues that is worrying me. Even if that is anger, even if there is fear, even if there is sorrow, even if there's bullying, write down everything. And the moment after you finish writing, read it instantly. You will find 30 to 40% is concocted, or my imagination, or I thought so. Read it after 1 more hour and then destroy the paper. The paper should not be kept at all, because human tendency is to refer that paper and then become sad all over again. So this is called, I call it psychological puking. You know, when we overeat, what did we do? We put our fingers and vomit. So this is also when I'm overfull, get it out of my system. It saves me because I don't have to go to anybody else. I'm not projected as a weak person. How many times would we like to go to some person? You can have discussions, but the same issue, if we keep on going on and on and on, people will avoid me after some time. So that is where, and what will happen is when I'm empty, my relatively, I'll be calmer. Again, once I have written down, when it is in black and white, I will address the issue. This is where it is the problem. Okay. I come to the third S. The third S is self-reliance. I believe each one of us, of course, today our Prime Minister is going on insisting on Atmanirbharta, that is self-reliance. But self-reliance has to be of my thought, of my feelings. I often tell the corporate executives that there is a sentence I quote of my own is, let us be democratically autocratic. Now, democratically autocratic is, I listen to everybody and then come down to a conclusion, but that conclusion is mine. So I am objective there. And this particular aspect of it is very, very important, you know. During my research work, I actually researched for 32 years. Okay, the first 5-6 years, I was not aware that it was a research. Later on, I realized it was a research. And I went to north, south, east, west of India. I went to different states and stayed in the villages to study people. And it took me 30 years. After 32 years, I got my PhD. But when I researched, and I learned a lot of things. One of the major things I learned is the definition of education. All of us who are literate are not necessarily educated. And I know plenty of people who are not literate but are highly educated. Education is opening the horizon of the mind. Education is adaptability to change with globalization, but not forgetting my own values, not my own traditions. Today we think everything udhar ka theek hai, so I mold myself. No, I can still remain a proud Indian with all my values, with all my traditions, yet I can be accepted globally. It is always possible. And that is education. Yes, sanskar and kusanskar, differentiation of both will have to be. I have learned this lesson from a so-called uneducated, but who was actually illiterate 80-year-old lady when I was 25 years old. I'm not going to actually share the whole incident because it is going to take a lot of time, but I learned from her that what is education and what is literacy. And from a village I had learned, because at the age of 25, I was doing my PhD, so I was, thinking no end of myself. And I was hailing from a very high profile family. So, a pity approach I had. There I crashed. I realized it is she who is educated. I might have done my master's. I might be doing my PhD, but I am only literate. I am not educated. Wisdom is with her. And it is during that time when I realized the self-reliance, because this lady was at the age of 80, she was very, very self-reliant. She would do all her chores alone and lead her life independently. But when I say this independence, independence of thought and feeling, actually, you know what it precedes? It precedes, first of all, physically. You will notice any person, first we get physically, weak, and then mental weakness comes afterwards. So it's very important to be physically active. That is why women across the world are far more agile than the men, because whatever it is, we men have been groomed in not doing much of household chores. Today things are changing, but most of us don't. I do, but most of the people don't like to do anything. You will find a woman, a lady of the house, even when she's 80 and 90, they're still agile because they do everything at home. Even when a lady is working, school or college or any corporate professional, when they come back home, it's they who cook, they who maintain home. So they're agile. We men don't. And what happens to us? Because physical agility goes out, gradually mental agility also goes out, and gradually we become senile. So Atmanirbhar has to come first with physically, let us be self-reliant. Like for instance, men must stitch their own buttons, make their own bed, go to the kitchen to help, wash clothes, wash utensils, all, even in your own cabin, you can clean a table. I do that. Whatever I say, I practice everything. And then what happens is people start looking up to you and I start having a confidence. When I'm physically agile, automatically, mentally, I will be far more alert. Okay? I am a very old man now, but I find that my memory is as sharp as I was when I was 30. And I'm physically, even now I'm working 16 hours a day physically, and I'm able to work. And with joy, primarily because I love what I do. And I have belief in myself. Yes, this much I will definitely say. With age, slight slowing down has happened. That is bound to happen. So therefore, self-reliance is a very important thing. Now I go to the next slide called family and relationships. I call it the CAP, you know. And what is the CAP? It is communication, acceptance, and presentation. When from self, when I start, it's with my family and relations. So I must be able to communicate. And communication is what? I had referred to this transaction analysis. I must understand the capacity of the receiver to receive. With whomever I am talking, my tone must be such, my approach must be such. Today we have both, verbal and non-verbal. Body language is more crucial, more important. So when we communicate, how do I communicate? That's very important. And with whom do I communicate? I often say, what to do, all of us know. But how to do makes all the difference. Then comes, as we grow, academics come in our life. So we have to add value to ourselves. The academics is not because of only degrees, because the enlightenment grows. I think all of us know, till 12th standard, what is written in the textbook, that needs to be answered. Okay, but when we go for higher studies, what is written in the textbooks cannot be answered. Then we don't get marks. Then my own contribution has to happen. That is what I call is academics. That enlightenment, that I'm able to observe multiple things, able to internalize those learnings and then add them to my living. And then comes presentation. Presentation is again projection. Presentation is how do I project? I hear there's a lady who came, mera vani kharab hai. Because anything she goes to say, the way she tells, people misconstrue. So therefore, we must know even the way to talk. Presentation is not only about the clothes and my style. Presentation is my whole approach to people. When we take up presentation skills, I always say it is PPT or brochures. They are not presentations. There aids to a presentation. Presentation is by the person, the individual who is talking. Now I'm showing you PPT, but that is not my presentation. Presentation is me, the way I talk to you. And therefore, that presentation will come when I believe in myself. When will I believe in myself? When I will know the truth. When I will be confident within myself that what I'm talking, I believe in that, and that gets projected, and that is presentation. Then I now come to profession. When I come to profession, I call it the 3 T's. That is target and focus, time management, and team dynamics. Of course, there are the 3 more T's, which is called trust, transfer, and transform. But let me first talk about target and focus. Since I also train at IIT as well as all the MBA colleges, the concept of target and focus has changed from the time when I was young. When I was young, we had target and focus was also synonymous. Today, target is what is to be achieved, and focus means how to achieve. Focus means I must know what is in front of me, what is behind me, what's on my right, what's on my left, what is on top, what's on the bottom. That means I need to have tremendous observation skills. Observation skills happens through, I'll talk about this in the next slide, how it happens. So we have to understand the difference between the target and the focus. And also at this point, an issue comes of generation. People call generation gap, but I say there's nothing called a generation gap. It is generation diversity. As we grow, we elders, when I say elders, I'm not talking about 70 plus, 80 plus. I'm saying from 25 to when I'm 30, 30 to I'm 35, 35 to I'm 40, 40 to I'm 50. That as I'm growing and adding age, I must also understand the changes that are happening in every sphere of life, which I call is GMQ in the corporate language. GMQ is general market quotient. It is not dividend and share. Along with GMQ, I do not know if you know, Suresh sir, you will remember that in OFP, I had made a paper presentation of competitive intelligence. So it's a very important thing to know what is happening across the globe. I just like to share, because we are the same fraternity, just before the pandemic in 2019, when Open Forum for Principals, of which I'm the chairperson, we had our annual meet. You know what I had done? I had spoken on something called equal education. There is, Cambridge board, there is ICSC, there's CBSC, and there's state board. But education is education. Why everything cannot be shared? And I made a platform where ICSC people or CBSC people or SSC people and Cambridge board, everybody shared. And you know what we found? That even state boards, there are schools who are having horse riding and are having swimming. But we thought it is the prerogative of Cambridge board and ICSC board. The myth was broken. It is the desire, the passion, and the vision, plus the financial ability. So equal education is a must. And we can all learn, and that is what I had shared that time. And I was so grateful to each principal coming and sharing the thing that what ICS is doing, even a state board can do, subject to certain conditions. May not be in totality, but partially it can always be done. And there are, and it is happening. Now, I come down to time management. All of us know time management is a mental discipline. Why am I talking under profession, the time management, and specifically today as an educationist? Because, I think we all know this, that whatever we say must reflect in me. I have to practice what you preach. But then, if discipline is not seen in me, how can I be an effective teacher? It is not the subject that is being taught. It is the overall that has been taught. Is the teacher right on time in the class? or she late, or she's early, she goes away. Now her own discipline is going to be inculcated into discipline. Uh, in our time, I'm talking because I'm old, I used to see my teachers, apart from the subject, everything else also used to emanate in their behavior. Unfortunately, today that is not there. So this holistic learning does not happen. What was the need of having a life skill program nowadays? When I was small, we did not have life skills program, yet we learned. Because as a teacher, the teaching fraternity must have a second thought. We must realize, we must think, do I project everything that a human being is supposed to be? The basic qualities of time management and team dynamics, is it getting projected? Now, if that does not get projected, then the learning goes wrong. Now, I have been observing even in online, number of teachers are not coming on in class. Students are already there, teachers don't. So it's reflecting. So time management is a mental discipline. And I believe it is more of a common sense strategy. I have to regulate my life, regulate my activity. When I'm doing it, I have to take out my travel time, my family time, my professional time. I have to bifurcate each, bracket each, and therefore act accordingly. And that is simple as time management, because time management gets reflected into a human being. And therefore, such persons are accepted. Then it comes to team dynamics. There's a little, the reason I have taken team dynamics is there's a little difference between team building and team dynamics. I teach team dynamics a lot in USA because team building is logistics and infrastructure. And team building comes within the available resources. Today, even a school has an HRD department. So they choose the people and they give it to the respective departments. But the team dynamics is how the team is going to work. It is the spirit of the team. For this, I believe there are 3 sentences: that individual growth is necessary, but individual growth is not the end. Collective individual growth is a must. So I can have people with me. We have all heard the story. There used to be 6 sons who'd fight all the time. And the parents, the father always explained, but finally told each one of them to get a stick and break the stick. Each one broke the stick. Then the father said, get again another lot of 6. Then all the 6 sticks he tried and he said, break it. But I go a little further. What if the first stick that I had brought was very solid and hard? It would be impossible to break that. And when such strong sticks are tied together, the strength is much larger. So therefore, individual, that is why self is important. Individually, I must be powerful. And when such powerful things come, and when I'm saying powerful is not physical, I'm calling about powerful, am I reasonable? Do I have logic? Do I have accountability? Do I have adaptability? And when all of us have that, what is going to happen is the whole team is going to be open to ideas and open to molding as per the requirement that is required. Therefore, there's another sentence which I say is initiate the initiative of the fellow team members. I believe every person has initiative, but some of us may not be able to show our initiative, and there are reasons. It could be, in psychology we have environment or theory, this is hereditary theories. Because of such circumstances, one may be quiet. I have had people who wouldn't talk much. Then I realized because unke ghar pe they were not allowed to talk much. But what happens, and I encourage them to come out and talk. Today, when they talk, what happens is we get valuable suggestions. Others would have been deprived of such suggestion. That is why it is not the job of the leader, but the fellow team members. Everybody needs to motivate everybody. Everybody needs to encourage and appreciate self as well as others, including our bosses. Because the bosses also are human beings. They also love to be appreciated. This brings me to this trust, transfer, and transform. Across the globe for the last 10 years, A major training is going on in corporate that is called mentoring, and in number of universities, even in Mumbai universities, under the education management department, I have been taking mentoring training for the students as well as the professors. Recently, I was taking at RCF, Rashtriya Chemical Fertilizers Limited. I was taking mentoring with them. I said, what is mentoring? And that is what is so important now in pandemic. That do I trust myself? Am I able to trust the other person? And am I able to transfer my knowledge and my spirit of living? Because that gradually will transform. Nothing happens overnight. It takes time, but initiative has to be taken. We have to start leading our life. I come to the last slide of mine, which I call it is the key requirements that are required. Okay. So in the key requirements, I have capacity and limitations. Each one of us will have to know what is my capacity, but also my limitations. Most of us, we lose out on the limitation part of it. जो मुझसे नहीं होता तो नहीं होता. I can delegate. Whoever is good at it, there's nothing to feel shy. We cannot know everything. It is not possible. There are too many. Just now I told you, there's something went wrong. I do not know. Immediately I told my IT. They were standby. I have to take their help. What is there to feel shy about it? I don't know. I'm trying to learn. It may take longer, or in this life I may not learn. It doesn't matter. But I have to have the backup plan all the time. Then I was talking to you about observation skills. Observation happens to a number of ways. Reading is one of them. Seeing is another. Hearing is another. And even writing is another. So all these methods will have to be internalized. We need to have humor, because we need to look at life, which gives us hope. The lighter side of life, specifically in pandemic, what has happened is, we are, as I told you, I started, we are fear of the unknown and we are paranoid. You know, I have taken too many parenting workshops during this pandemic across the globe, in India as well as across the globe, all online, of course. I actually give timetable to parents, right from KG children to 12th standard, how they should spend the 24 hours, where I even gave, time for procrastination. A child will have that, procrastination. Nahi karunga, dikhta hunga. No. You have to provide time. Time for fighting. And people were laughing. But they may sound humorous, but they're very significant to do that. Light को light-heartedly दिखाना बहुत जरूरी है. देखना भी बहुत जरूरी है. And I had told you in the beginning, I will talk about diplomacy. Diplomacy is not lies. Today we find our foreign minister is traveling and going on constantly having interaction with his counterparts of Russia, China, US, UK, Pakistan. What is diplomacy? Is able to share our thoughts in a palatable manner, which it becomes easy. So when projection, the primary basic line of projection is diplomacy. How do I tell the truth in a manner which is digestible by the other person? We can call a spade, but we can also call a spade in an indirect manner. So where the scope for continuity and not the end, that is projection. That we do not, कि मैंने बोल दिया सो खत्म हो गया, नहीं. Let multiple thoughts come in. I believe in God a lot. I don't do a lot of puja part, rituals I don't. And I remember this statements of Ramakrishna Paramhans, Vivekananda's Guru. He had said, as many people, there are that many thoughts. As many thoughts, there are that many ways. And I believe that's what is diplomacy. हर एक को अधिकार होता है अपने विचार रखने का. क्यों नहीं? मैं कौन होता हूं बोलने वाला आप गलत हो? But I should hear you, you hear me. And उसमें से कुछ तो निकल आएगा. इसलिए मैं बोला था क्वेश्चंस पूछना जरूरी है. बच्चों से भी पूछा जाए. हमारे को हर घर में why do you have so much of problems, because parents don't want to listen to children. Listen, I'm saying share now. Every activity, whichever is possible to share with children. They will become a part of it. So today, therefore, we have participatory training. Teaching is participatory. So that is how diplomacy comes across. How do we talk? So therefore, interact, I call it IOC, interact. We need to constantly have communications. And each communication, we have to know whom am I talking to. Then observe that when I'm talking, what is the reaction? I call it AIR, action, interaction, and reaction. We must have, when I'm talking, the other person who is listening to me is going to react. So they may not say anything, but the facial gestures or the body language does reflect. And I need to circulate. The more I circulate with people, I need not even speak. I can keep my ears and eyes open. When I circulate, I learn a lot. There are a lot of inputs coming inside this. Okay. The last sentence I believe in is intelligence is very, very important, but it needs to be backed by common sense. And that is the core line underlining of projection and reality. We must have common sense enough as to then intelligently package the whole thing. This is what is my understanding of projection and reality. With this, I end my talk. Thank you so much, CEIR management, Dr. Gopinath, and all the committee members for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tushar Guha. It's very well said about democratically autocratic. That is the required principle which is to be used for the principals and particularly for the teachers also. The participants, in case if you would like to ask any questions to sir, please ask now. You can just raise your hand so that we can unmute yourself and you can ask him directly.
Pramod sir want to ask some questions. Pramod sir, please.
Yes,
yes.
Pramod
Good
sir,
evening,
please.
sir. Good evening, sir. Dr. Guha, the democracy and autocracy. Now, democratic autocrat, it's somewhat not digesting because both have the different characteristics. And synchronizing the democratic view with the autocratic view, both thought processes are entirely different. Yeah, we can say that thing. Saying is very easy, but synchronizing that thing, I think it is not digesting. So if you can focus on more on that, how to synchronize that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Synergy to energy, we can do that thing. But from energy to synergy
See,
going, it is like that.
It has to be practiced. Democratic, see, when we say democracy and autocracy, they are poles apart.
Yes.
They are two different ends. But when we bring them together, here democracy is, I have to listen to everybody, but naturally not during emergency. If there is a crisis, then if I keep on listening to everybody, then it is not going to be possible. As the head, say as a principal of a school, there are certain things, the vision of the principal will be far more wider than of any teacher or any student. The principal will have to take into consideration not only the students and the parents, but the teachers and the supporting staff, the office staff, the management, the board members, and the government. So multiple. So their vision is far more bigger. So therefore, even if when I listen to the others, I take only that part of theirs, but I cannot give away this because I have also to understand whatever I am going to decide, I'm answerable to number of other areas also. So there comes the autocracy, which the others will not understand. See, as the chairman of my group, we are global organization. Chairman of my group, I have 200 faculty members who are working. Now there are certain set rules, but I have to deviate also at times. But therefore, I take, and mine is, mind you, as a social organization primarily. So and in social organization, it is very difficult to sustain everybody together. And I'm very proud, mine is 58-year-old organization. Till date, nobody has ever left. That's what I take a lot of pride in. But for that, I had to work doubly hard. Not only me, my second and third line had to work tremendously at keeping everybody together. So we spend a lot of time interacting, getting feedback, taking their opinions. It's not that everything what they're saying can be implemented, cannot be. So we tell them that this much is not possible to implement, or they can be implemented later on. It cannot be done at this particular moment. And therefore, and the decision has to go from me.
Yeah.
Because if you allow everybody to come and take a decision will never happen. No executive can ever function unless and until it is the authority will have to speak.
Yeah, but I think that it's deciding the best with the available resources or available thought process, customizing it as per the need and requirement and
Yes,
the
sir. Yes,
situation.
sir.
So
Yes, sir.
that is somewhat closer to the distributed community thought process. But I think calling it autocracy is something, because it is not,
Sir,
because that
let
person
me
will be
tell
more
you, the
democratic rather than.
quotes are pun intended.
Yeah.
Okay. When you say democratically autocratic, this is pun intended.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, there is one question from Mr. Hanuman Deshmukh. How do you see arts in the form of dance to understand human nature of oneself and others also?
Okay. This is very interesting, because what happens is usually when I started learning dance from the age of 2.5. So usually when even male boys are dancing, somehow our way of training has been they become effeminate. Okay. And that by the time I was about 12 and 13, I didn't like it. I said, why a man dancing should become effeminate? Okay. But that is because the way we are taught. So I started you have met me several, I am not at all feminine, or none of my male dancers are at all feminine. So it is the way we are teaching them. That is why. Now, as for understanding a person, only through dance alone you cannot, because that is also a projection. Because whatever is they say, if it is a classical dance, the way the adavas have been taught, the way the steps have been taught, or the mudras, hasta mudras, or the abhinaya has been taught. So that is what they're going to portray. So that does not give at all as to what is the human being is. Because whenever we are dancing in classical or even in folk, we are portraying a character, we are portraying certain moods, and that is not necessarily the dancers, right? So it'll never be able to come down to that. Oh, dancer showed this, therefore he or she must be like this. That is not, because we are on stage, we are performing artists, we are acting. Dance, maybe we do not use the word acting, but abhinaya is a singularly most important factor in dance, be it all classical or folk or anywhere.
Great, sir. Rima Banka ma'am has raised her hand. Can we unmute her? Rima Banka. Madam Rima Banka, you can.
I'm unable to.
Madam, you can unmute. We have done from our side. You please. Yeah. Now it is fine. Please on your video if possible.
I'm sorry. By mistake, I
You
raised
proceed
my
with the
hand.
question,
I'm
sir.
sorry. It was by mistake. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank
In
you.
case any other
Other
participant,
principal UPS, one more hand is there. Bala, principal UPS.
please unmute yourself and ask.
Good evening, sir.
Is also there. Pramod sir, you can also
Sir,
ask.
can you hear me, sir? Mbala,
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, I can
Yes,
hear
yes.
you, but I think there are 2-3 people speaking.
Sir, I'm Bala, sir, and can you throw some light on
Tell me, sir.
team dynamics, sir? Once again.
Sir, I think there's a lot of
Sir,
breaking.
sir, please, Bala, sir, please ask the question again once more.
Sir, can you throw some light on team dynamics once again?
Yeah. Again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Team dynamics, as I said, it is different from team building. Team dynamics is the spirit, how we work in the team. So naturally, when we have a team, let's take a school, if I, as an example, if I give a school, so who will be the team? It will be the principal, then the teachers. So naturally there'll be a coordinator or a supervisor and all that, and then the teacher or head of departments, also certain schools. Then there'll be one section that will be the office staff. There'll be one section that is called the supporting staff. Okay. So when we have all, so what is it that we have to? We have to empower each group, empower with their own work. That is, they must understand what is their function, start to end. They must understand what is their function, what is expected out of them, and they have to be briefed. So today you will find not only in corporate, even in number of schools, I find even class 4 people are being groomed. And it is a must because most of them do not know what is their function. They emulate the senior and start doing it. So their roles are not defined. It's necessary for the efficiency of the organization that every person knows their definite role, what they're supposed to do, and the extension of the role also. Because others, what happens? They start taking advantages or misuse power. So that needs to be explained. Now, once that is called the functional side. That's the team building side. But team dynamics cannot happen if the team building is not firm. Once that is done, this role definition has come in, then you can designate somebody who does the moderations of all these people, and basic line therefore happens is, it is not that if somebody is at fault, you are not supposed to say that you are at fault, and even stringent action also needs to be taken at times. That is where I said, the democratically autocratic, that needs to be done. But at the same time, we need to appreciate and encourage, because there are people who are not intentionally doing wrong, but misconception or concepts are not clear. They were not sure as to what they should do. So gradually, this will come. So in team dynamics, is the spirit that counts, to appreciate. So I always say we need to be a little friendly with our people. For instance, get to know each one's background, who all are there in the family. I know a lot of organizations, 14 years they are there working together. They're not even aware if the colleague is married or not married, or who are the members of the family. I think that's very significant. I need not know much, but at least I should know certain things about him, so that, where is the bonding otherwise? Because, just we have come here to work and then full stop. No, bonding has to go extend a little bit more. That is called team dynamics, sir.
Sir,
Is it all right, sir? Hello?
Yes, sir. Mahajan, sir.
Yeah.
Tushar, sir,
Sir.
these videos, now it's correct.
Yeah, sir, in team dynamics,
Yeah.
whatever the outcomes are there, who holds the responsibility and who holds the authority?
So,
Sir, you're muted.
sir, I told you that's why that we need to designate somebody. So when team building happens, they designate key so and so. Usually in team building nowadays in corporates, it's the HR department that does. HR also has got an extension called L&D, that is learning and development. But HR one section is for training, one section is for man management, So that section, that is what is supposed to be taken care of. See, in larger organization, you do not expect the head to do everything. It is not possible. So even in a school nowadays, when you have more than 100 teachers, we cannot expect the principal to start doing every little thing. So principal will again designate some people. You can make it, when I always say, you can make a small group of people, a leader of that group, and sometimes official designation, sometimes unofficially designated people also. It depends how it is going to work. Like I have in my own organization, there are a lot of unofficial designations are there. Because I know that they are very good at talking and they are able to carry the team along with them. And if I give them the designation, the moment of acha, they are my boss. So I avoid that. It is that way it has to be done.
Right, sir.
So responsibility,
Sir.
of course, the absolutely head will have to decide who is going to take the responsibility.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box from Mrs. Shrija Menon. Being in a team, how can we motivate the ones who are less motivated and align them with others?
Wonderful question. Yeah, I think if I'm not wrong, you said, how can you motivate the boss, right? Isn't it? So let's be clear,
Yeah,
that is why.
yeah,
What is the
yes, sir.
question again, please?
Question is, being in a team,
Whom you want to
how
motivate?
how can we motivate the ones who are
Those who are
less
less
motivated,
motivated.
and align them with
Okay,
others?
okay. Coming to that. Yeah, yeah. Compared to when we find there are certain people not very motivated, not like the others are less motivated, then the head, the leader, will have to take certain steps. For instance, Sir Suresh sir, if you know, in your school
Yeah.
also, when I had the principal sessions, I said there could be a meeting of coterie, then single, then group, and en
Yes,
masse,
sir.
if you remember. That is what is the step that has to be taken. They could be taken up, and not as an official meeting. It should not be called into the cabin. But
Yeah.
by the by, bato mein, we should find out about them, and therefore we'll find out what is the area why so and so is not motivated. As I told you while in my talk, it could be for environmental reason. It could be there was in the family somebody was very dominant, and this particular person as a child always remained suppressed. So even in the profession is unable to speak up. Now there are usually, when there is somebody very dominant at home, the outcome is extreme. Either that person, when he's an adult, becomes fiery and starts talking or bossing over other people, or becomes extraordinarily subdued. So we have to find out what it was, and then address that issue. There are a lot of ways of doing it. Of course, there are all psychological ways of doing it. That's what we call it mentoring. That has happened, it is done. Give them certain responsibilities, and therefore you will. I think, Suresh sir, if I'm not
Yes, sir.
wrong, you were one of the team members in this, how
Yes, sir.
handle people.
Yes, sir.
There I had, when there is somebody who is very subdued, what all we should do for them. Now that itself, those are separate papers in itself.
Correct.
That will take me another 1.5 hours to explain. Okay, so then there are ways how to address this subdued people. And once they receive appreciation and encouragement, which they have never received, then they start gradually opening up. And they may falter also in the initial stage. So you have to build up their self-esteem is zero. So you have to create the self-esteem, sir.
Sir, there's another question from Dr.
These are
Sucharita.
very huge subjects. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's another question from Dr. Sucharita Chatterjee.
Yeah.
Can you give some inputs regarding keeping the spirit high of the teachers during this pandemic, which is very much the need of the hour?
Yeah. Absolutely, ma'am. I agree with you. This is, in fact, in the schools that are regularly in touch with me, including Suresh School, I often keep on telling them that the principal must have online meeting with the teachers, periodically. And that apart, now a lot of schools have kept somebody, the vice principal, somebody who is monitoring the classes. So such people should, and it should not be only by the principal alone. Maybe number of, what happens is all round appreciation needs to come. So you can talk to each of the teachers one-to-one and different timings, and not that you have to do to everybody every month. And certain things you note which is highly appreciative. So that needs to be pointed out to teacher privately, and then on occasions make a public statement when you have met all the teachers online. By take certain names, certain instances rather, even if you do not want to take names. If you share the instances, that particular person will know it is for him or her, and everybody will, that means it is called public recognition. One-to-one when you have done, but it is a must, and it should be a continuous process, man. I cannot, and actually I say, even when physical classes are on, even that time it has to be. But here it is now all the more, because there is no personal contact ever happening. And if any parent has appreciated something, share that for this particular class in general, not to become specific, but privately you can, of course, even share that. So this interaction is a must. because everybody likes to hear good about themselves, but naturally it has to be valid.
Okay, sir.
So when you
Uh,
justify with
Yes,
an
sir.
example,
Great,
yeah.
sir.
Last question. Last
because
question.
I am taking online teachers training. Yeah, okay.
Great, sir.
One
A.
last.
Sharma sir is there. He is also
Okay.
an expert in this subject. AP Sharma sir,
Okay.
do you want to ask some question, AP Sharma sir? I could find Deepa ma'am also. They're all our zonal, great zonal directors. AP Sharma sir, Deepa ma'am. I think Mr. Pramod Rajput is also there. He is also a veteran in this field.
May I
I could
ask?
see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Sir,
very good.
any
Very
questions?
good evening, sir. First of all, thank you so much for bringing your expertise and experience and giving us the insight regarding very important topics in the form of 3S, 3Cs, CAP, and about the intelligence factor that it must be backed up by common sense, although it is not very common these days. So, sir, my query is one more thing I would like to thank you for, and that is your concept of age. Age is just a number actually, and a person's age, as per, means according to what you said, a person's age must be calculated by the equation 18 plus experience. Am I right, sir?
So sweet. So sweet,
So
man.
my thank you. My query is, sir, what would be the impact of replacement of an educationist by robots? Say a teacher or a doctor, whatsoever. Will the development of artificial intelligence or e-learning kind of things means it will increase the scope of automation and standardization of didactic as well as social processes? Because you know, sir, as this is but natural, I mean, it is assumed that you cannot teach artistry to machine, social sensitivity or emotional intelligence or empathy, etc. So what is your view about this?
I actually tend to agree with this, because there are certain things cannot be taught with whatever the artificial intelligence and all those things is not possible. They all will have a limitations, because I am in the the international emotional and intelligence committees. That so we always discuss to a particular point the artificial intelligence will go, but after that the touch is required. Touch, I'm not talking as a physical touch, but that touch one to one is a must. We at the end of it, because we are human beings at the end, we are not robots. That comes back, come what may. See, even now when online, I enjoy talking to you and all, but I think I would have loved if I could have seen you people. Now, ma'am, frankly, because when you ask